I believe human language will be the main interface for any DeFi application. Like it can think, not like a human, but it can think at least very logically. I myself have a task that runs every morning at 7 a.m. which instructs my agent to go find the macro news of this week, and it tells me which is bearish, which is bullish for each asset class.
Knowledge could be democratized to individuals like us.
Supported by Igra Labs Atomic Programmability on a Kaspa blog tag.
Cascade. Use your Kaspa without selling it.
Today, I'm joined by Louis from ZealousSwap. Louis, it's your 4th appearance here on the show. Welcome and good to see you.
Thank you so much, Ankit. Thank you for having me again. It's a pleasure, to be honest.
Look, Louis, I wanted to have you today to discuss an unusual topic, right? And we're going to discuss what's happening in the world of AI and how it's actually coming to DeFi, right? It's one of the major trends that's taking shape, and perhaps not a lot of people are discussing, right? AI agents are becoming the killer UX layer for DeFi. Right, that's the topic really for today, right? How it's sort of replacing or bypassing traditional UIs, right? So let me start with this question, right? DeFi certainly, or at least I feel, DeFi has a known UI problem, right? Do you agree with that statement?
I do totally agree. It's hard for regular users. That's why most of the trading happens, especially in cryptocurrency, on centralized exchanges, where it's much easier to switch capital or onboard capital to the exchange. It's much easier, and people don't have to worry about like slippage, MAV attacks, and stuff. So yeah, DeFi is harder for regular users. That's why this is where agents can step in and fix that UX barrier.
So you do agree that it's the UI UX is perhaps not suitable for everyone, because there's a lot of learning curve that people have to go through, right, to get to use swaps or even lending and borrowing. One of the studies I actually was reading recently, now I don't know the authenticity of this study, but it was stating that there's only 1 to 2 million users that are active across DeFi, right, across all of DeFi, right? Such a small number when you really think about it, right? 1 to 2 million across all DeFi platform. Again, I don't know if it's actually real and right number, because how you actually calculate it, right? Wallets, I think, will be a lot more, obviously, right? But I think in terms of users, it's a lot less. So I guess that's perhaps what you just highlighted, right? It's not ready for the normal users, but perhaps it was always designed for AI agents.
I do agree with that. I believe the number you said is pretty accurate. There are DeFi users, but yes, of course, they are not much. Yeah, I believe the number you said is pretty accurate. Yeah, so if you want to count users with like decent activities, not like just 3-4 transactions per year on DeFi, I think the number is pretty accurate. I do believe also that, and I do agree that DeFi is made more for agents more than people, because everything happens on chain, everything can be tracked, so an agent can query its transactions, and you can supervise it, since you can see everything it does, even if it forgets. Like AI agents have U-shaped memories, and we know they tend to forget stuff after a certain context window. So yeah, everything is recorded, everything happens on chain, and it's just like code. So agents can read the code, understand the protocol very well. Instead of reading documentation, they can just read the code. But people that do not understand the code, and there is poor documentation on, let's say, this protocol, it's harder for them like to actually understand it and use it, or potentially know if it's like shady. But agents can look at the documentation and code. Maybe they find something shady and decide not to use that protocol. But yeah, as I said, everything is on chain. They can query anything, any data. Yeah, and once we have the perfect layer for giving certain permissions to those agents on chain, the adoption will be crazy for AI agents.
Yeah. I think the way I think about it, right? I think AI agents will be like the indicators on TradingView, right? If you go to TradingView, you can bring any indicators, right? Like you can make yourself one of the indicators, and then it just tracks the way you would like it to track, right? So I feel eventually we'll have, hundreds of thousands of agents built by different people, or you can build yourself. And I recently had a session actually with a company called Async AI. They're actually building KYC for AI agents, a beautiful product out of Australia. And they built huge platform already. Anyways, but yeah, I think what you said is sort of it's moving in that direction, right? Like it's eventually we will have our AI agents, and we'll be trusting, instead of going to the DeFi platform, we'll be trusting the AI agents that we have been recommended by the people, or we built ourselves, perhaps something like that, right?
Exactly. So let's give an example right now in the Kaspa ecosystem. We have, like, let's say Igra Labs, which is the Igra L2 chain, which is EVM based, and the Casplex EVM chain also. If people want to bridge assets from, let's say, from Casplex to Igra, let's say someone needs to move Zeal from Casplex to Igra, they have to go through the cat bridge to the Kaspa L1, then from the Kaspa L1 bridge again to the Kaspa L2. This is bad UX for users. So an agent, imagine it, instead of doing all of this stuff, you just prompt an agent, you give it an intent that I want to move, let's say, 10k Zeal from Casplex to Igra. It figures it out all by itself and it moves it for you. You just give it the intent, it does the work for you.
Yeah. So let's enter AI agents. I don't believe they fancy pretty UIs. I don't believe they fancy pretty interfaces, right? They're purpose-built machines, like, small cells in the body, right? Like small sort of, they're designed for a purpose, right? So let me perhaps ask you a different question, right? Do you see AI agents becoming the default interface on DeFi, right? So default, right? Right now, I think we'll say majority of, the interactions are still user-based, right? But you think eventually it'll all be the agents?
Yes, I do think that. I think the UI is just made for humans and it will become irrelevant pretty soon. Since AI agents currently can do anything on chain that they want, we just lack like a perfect permissions layer. Once that is found, is created, then we can move. I would phase it at three phases. Currently, we are in phase 1. Phase 2 is when we have a perfect layer of permissions, where AI agents can get the exact permissions you want them to have, and they can act on that on chain. We have some solutions toward that. Igra introduced. Okay, it was introduced before. It's ERC 4337. Igra introduced it a couple of days ago on their chain, but there still needs some work to be fully compatible. But once we have that layer, and it's not perfect layer, but once we have like a perfect permissions layer, then we move to phase 2, where agents can execute literally anything. Okay, phase 3 would be you don't even have to give it permissions. It knows what it does. It's aware of everything it's doing. It can research protocols. It can choose which protocols to use to do that exact transaction. Maybe it can also divide its, let's say, a big swap, into multiple protocols to get you the best rate possible. Yeah. So basically, I believe human language will be the main interface for any DeFi application, which humans can give an intent to an AI agent. The AI agent would go and execute that intent in the perfect way that it finds it, because it can query multiple protocols, get multiple quotes. it can query multiple chains. Maybe it finds a good rate, let's say on Aptos. It can let's say bridge your USDC to Aptos, swap it for ETH, let's say, and bring it back to the chain you want to use it. But because the best quote was there, it gets you the best deal and give it to you. Even it can protect you from MEV attacks. So as we know, some big swaps can be targeted by MEV attacks. So the AI agents would be smart enough to understand that it should like split that transaction into multiple sub transactions, maybe even, as I said, multiple protocols. Even it can let's say use a private mempool in order to execute that swap. And yep, we also have like a nice payments protocol for agents, which was developed by Coinbase, which is called X402, which is an HTTP based crypto payments that agents can use to access certain APIs, web pages, or stuff. So maybe a mempool, a private mempool, can have an X402 API for agents to be able, like, let's say, if they pay a cent per executing a transaction in that mempool. So they can do it all by themselves, no human interaction. They can go to this website. This website will ask them to, or this API will ask them to just pay like a cent to use it. They will pay it completely. They don't have to ask you. No wallet pop-ups, nothing to approve, nothing. They have the permission. They go do it on your behalf and execute your swap.
So look, you've touched upon so many different things, right? So you've talked about ERC 4337, I believe. You've talked about X402 protocol, designed and developed by Coinbase. But I think before we get to discuss different parts of DeFi, how agents can touch and act upon different parts of DeFi, from swaps to pools to obviously all the way to lending. Could you please repeat those three phases you said? So you've said there are three phases. What are these three phases that you highlighted?
Okay, so phase one that we are in now, that's just my opinion. Phase one is you drop an intent for your AI agent. The AI agent goes, find the best approach that it has for that, but it asks you if it can execute it. You give it, you create a specific wallet for it. You just add the capital you want to use for that AI agent to it. Or maybe you have a different permissions approach, maybe. But you cannot fully trust now an AI agent to use your entire capital with just what the permissions ways we have now. Once we solve the permissions framework, which many are trying to solve. Ethereum Foundation started with ERC 4337, which gives AI agents access to your wallet without giving it the private key, with also rules that it must follow. Let's say spend this capital, that capital. Even it can be a gasless transaction, because a protocol can sponsor it or you can sponsor it. Anyway, once we have a perfect permissions layer which you can trust to work as you intend, you can move to phase two, where you give full permission to your AI agent to execute without asking you, because you know that it cannot, let's say, use more than that or follow those rules. Once that is solved, we move to phase three, where AI agents are much smarter. They can go research well protocols, understand the math better. Like they can, and they reach a point where their context memory is very large, or we find a way to make them forget way less. So it can run, let's say, 24/7 on your machine without forgetting anything, and keep following the rules you set to it. Then it can go research protocols. You can give it full access. Maybe it also can become like a portfolio manager, a DeFi portfolio manager for yourself. So you don't have to even give it permissions anymore. You just say, I have this capital, like invest it, do whatever makes sense to it. But I think this is way. Now we are going to phase 2 based on the developments. Hopefully we can reach phase 3. It would be nice. But for now, we are in phase 1, going through phase 2.
Based on my understanding and knowledge, right, it's a new phenomenon, right? It's only been around for 2 months or so, right? Uniswap really kicked it off earlier in the year, right? February, I think, when they sort of came up with AI optimized toolkit, I believe, how they put it, right, for the existing API infrastructure. So they said, hey, we're going to give these AI agents sort of open source 7 skills across the protocol, right, from accessing swaps, planning swaps, liquidity position, like all sorts of things, right? They added a couple more things, right? 7 things they said. And for mostly for coding agents, right? I think these are Claude, mostly for cursor Claude, right, type thing, right? So I guess what you're defining is sort of a ambitious goal, right? That's like the North Star, what we'll be doing. But so you think we're right now in the stage 1 of the journey or stage 2?
Stage 1, moving to stage 2. Once we perfect the permissions layer, we can move easily to phase 2. Since agents are rapidly improving, and many protocols are creating like their own MCP servers, their own guides for AI on how to use that specific protocol. It's becoming much easier. AI agents have more memory than before. They are smarter. So yeah, we're definitely moving into phase 2, but we're not quite there yet. We are in phase 1, moving to phase 2.
I see. Just quickly, also, you guys obviously recently created the ZAP auction protocol, right, for IGRA, and where you guys had explicitly stated the support for AI agents for bidding tracking auctions, right? Did you see much of activity from AI agents on your on the auction side?
It's hard to tell. It's very hard to tell since we do not track what wallets were connected. We just track the number. So we don't know if that wallet that executed that transaction was connected to the front end. So we cannot tell. But I received some feedback from people that tried it, and they said it worked flawlessly because the skill we created instructs exactly the agent how it should determine if it can still bid. Sorry, how much it should bid depends on what the user intents are, when it can claim, how much it can predict to claim, because you cannot get the exact number unless the auction finishes. But we thought it in every in the skill how it should predict stuff, and those skills were not only used just for people that participated in the auction, but Currency Wallet used it to easily integrate Zap into their wallet. It took like 2-3 days, and it was fully ready to integrate in their wallet. So yeah, agents can learn fast, and you can make it even faster when you create a specific skill for them. So if every protocol creates a skill, the agent does not have to go through the code to understand it. They just have the skill, they understand the logic. So once we have also great skills on teaching AI how to manage risk, how to protect from MAV, how to think about large swaps, about the infrastructure itself, you can reduce so much their context window, and they would act the same as if they read everything.
What are the ways to track AI agents in the future? Like if you were to track what portion of your traffic or transactions are AI agents, what would you do to track it?
Maybe we can have specialized API for agents that agents would use, and we can track the
usage of it,
the numbers going through that.
Yeah.
Or as I said, we can track the wallets connected on the front end, and the wallets that executed stuff that weren't connected on the front end, then we can say that maybe they are AI agents, or maybe just a random program that was coded that way without interacting with the UI. Or maybe we have some solutions for, as you said, some are building KYC, and maybe we have some KYC solution on chain. It's specific for AI agents, so we can defer real users from AI agents. Maybe that's a way, but we don't have also that infrastructure. So when we have all of that, it will be definitely phase 3.
I see. I see. That's fascinating. I think this session I had with the guys from Australia, they were focused mostly on the corporate side. So their focus was, if we were to have this agentic ecosystem from, let's say, someone wants to spend money, but I wouldn't want in my organization AI agent that doesn't have KYC to come in and transact. So I'm the one on the other side. I'm the counterparty who is deciding if the AI agent is allowed to come in to transact on my e-commerce website. So from there, they actually built a sort of a grading system, basically, where AI agents based on the KYC factors is graded, and then that's allowed to be entered into the corporate, e-commerce website.
That's smart. I like it.
Yeah, because it's both sides. Not just the person who's building the AI agent needs to think, but also the person who's accepting to do the trade with the AI agents has to also think about, who and what type of AI agents and from which jurisdiction you led those AI agents into my business.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, that could be also part of the future. Who knows? Maybe, yep. Maybe you don't want just a random, let's say, malicious party creating an AI agent and going to transact on a certain chain, but on a certain website, as you said, e-commerce platform. But you want some AI agent that has KYC'd like on a track record, maybe, that for months it has been active and, let's say, transacting, and everything is legit and clean, then you would allow that on your website. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's smart. That's really smart.
Yeah, and especially if it's chain that's public chain like Kaspa or Ethereum or whatever, right? At least the counterparty and you can both verify that this AI agent is legit and exists and has transacted X number of times. Then you might have levels that, okay, if it's transacted 100,000 times, then I'm happy to let it transact and I'm happy to buy it from the developer. I don't know. We're just obviously hypothetically spitballing here, but those are the things these guys that are building it were thinking around those AI agents.
Yeah, that's actually very cool. Yeah, it could be part of the future also. That's so nice.
Yeah. So now I want to get into Kaspa, like Kaspa's unique property that allows it, that sort of makes it organic, layer 1 for AI agents. I want to get into that, but let's talk about other chains that are really, I guess, building it, right? One of such chain is Base, right? Base chain has really been, I guess, the pioneer in this AI agent, right? And roughly around 20% of their traffic is agent to agent operation. Like, it's a big number, right? 20% of the traffic is AI to AI, agent operation, right? So have you looked at them? Like, do you know what Base is doing outside of the X402 protocol that Coinbase developed?
Not really, but what I believe they are building now also, they are trying to fix the permissions layer that I was talking about earlier. Yeah, and as I said, they built X402 for online AI agent payments in crypto. Also, I believe currently most of the AI agent transactions on any chain, they are based on like finding arbitrage opportunities or liquidating
Market making.
market making, liquidating users and lending protocols, maybe sniping tokens that are launched on meme launchpads and stuff. So I believe this is the main currently, because I don't believe someone fully would trust now an AI agent to go and run automatically 24/7 on its behalf, But I would say also some people would ask them to like, let's do the swap, maybe, or when the price of BTC is at that price, go ahead and lend it and borrow against it, let's say X. And those, for now, AI agents can execute those fairly well. It's like asking an AI agent to go and find you a flight on multiple websites, and it picks you the best flight with the best price. That's easy for an agent. Same in DeFi. For now, that's easy. But researching protocols, reading code, going through everything, running 24/7, executing stuff, it will reach a point where it will forget. It becomes unreliable, since as I said, the agents have a U-shaped memory for now. So the more context they have, the more they forget.
The more context they have, the more they forget. What does that
Exactly.
mean? What does that mean?
So the more information you feed it right now, it tends to get the best information. Now we have some solutions of that. So it saves them in a file, and it reminds itself to read that file to remember what it had researched or what happened in that file. It's much better. We have like millions of tokens of context window for now. Even some models have higher, but it's still a limitation. If you run it for a week, after a week, it will tend to forget some previous stuff. Once we reach a point where this is, it has much higher context window, or maybe a solution that solves the memory problem, and we have the permissions layer, and maybe, as you said, the KYC layer, then I think we can easily move to Wave 3.
That's fascinating. Forgets the context from the past.
Large companies have found ways to partially solve that, which they can spin up sub-agents that do this task.
Right.
They and it reports only the important information to, let's say, to the master agent. So the master agent is aware of what is happening, but it does not need to use its full context window for that. So it keeps remembering. Also, as I said, they save it in files. They can go through again to remember what happened. Don't get me wrong, they are very the context window is very large. I think it can run for 24/7 for a week without forgetting anything, but it will reach a point to where it will start to forget. It will take time more. It will take more time to go back and process all the data it already has acquired to execution. So execution becomes slower. Maybe it forgets stuff. And if you have a long conversation with AI, you will see that at some point it will start forgetting stuff you said earlier.
Right. Yeah. No, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. I think there's so much depth of knowledge there is in this individual topic. But coming back to, I guess, DeFi, right? So I think we can both, I guess, agree that the basic functionality of the DeFi, likes of yield hunting or finding the right swap, for yield hunting based on pools, finding the right swap, routing. I think those things are easy, and I'm sure AI agents are already doing that, right? But do you think AI agents will be able to handle MEV, or being able to protect user from MEV and slippages? What do you think of that?
They can do it right now. As I said, they can maybe go to a private mempool. Maybe they can split the big swaps. A new user that's coming to DeFi might have big capital, let's say. He does not understand yet MEV. So maybe it swaps and gets sandwiched and loses capital. And we've seen that happen. We've seen many cases on Ethereum, on Uniswap. That
We
happens.
had Aave, right? We talked about Aave. $50 million became $36,000, like, by user mistake, right?
Exactly. And they claim that the UI showed him, that swap will result in this, and they still executed it. But for an agent that is well instructed, it won't do that. It will get the quote, see, no, or even think that we are on Ethereum. Blocks are 2, 3, 4 minutes. Maybe someone will sandwich us because the mempool is public. Maybe we can go to a private mempool, or maybe we can split that into multiple swaps, so no one can do it. People are lazy. They wouldn't like swap, wait 3 minutes, then swap again, wait 3 minutes, swap again. AI agents would do it. You just give it an intent. I need to swap 400,000 USD to ETH. Please do it. You come back after 10 minutes. It's done on your behalf with no math. But the AI should be well instructed.
Right. The AI should be well instructed. I guess that's the key, right? We're coming back to the AI has to know the context, has to know and not to forget. So in this case, what is a private mempool? You said they can go to a private mempool to execute this transaction, right? What is a private mempool?
So the mempool on Ethereum is public. Every transactions goes into the mempool, and everyone can see it before it gets picked up by a miner or, let's say, any entity that is running a node, and mine it or execute it. A private mempool would be the same thing, but it's not public. So only, like, let's say people that are paying a price are using that mempool. Okay, but you also risk of someone in that private mempool trying to be malicious. So yeah, but AI agents would like fix that, not fix the malicious issue, but they would understand that it's, let's say, better to split the transaction into multiple sub transactions.
Sorry, I think I disappeared for a bit.
Oh yeah.
I think I totally disappeared for a bit. Yeah, you can see me and you can hear me, right?
I can see you. I hear you now.
Right. I see. So these are like private RPCs, would you say?
If you want, yes. Some protocols have their own to protect their users.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it can be done. Yep.
Yeah. So essentially, what you're saying, if the user who transacted the $50 million was using one of the AI bots, most likely he wouldn't have lost that much money, right?
It wouldn't swap it in one go. If it was well instructed, if it has, like, let's say, a rule set of how to execute a swap properly, those are fed every time you spin up a new AI agent, like DeFi specific rules. It wouldn't. No, I don't think it would, because it would understand that there is math, especially on that chain, which it should either split or use a private mempool that is trusted.
What else on the swap side that you think AI agents can make people's life better?
You don't have to worry about selecting the tokens, entering the number, checking slippage stuff. Even the AI agents you could say, let's say, I want to swap 100 gas, let's say, for 100 USDC. But if you swap it at once, it will shift the price, so you're getting a worse deal. What it can do, it can split the swap. Let's say for now, it's swapping at that price. It waits a while. It checks the price constantly. Once the price is back up at the price you want, it can do the second half of the swap, let's say, and you got a good deal. It doesn't have to split it and do it all at once instantly, or it can route it through different protocols also. Here it would move it that much, here it would move it also that much. I will get a better deal. So it's much easier, like human language. I want you to give me 100 USDC, I give you those gas. It will do it for you. It will figure out the protocol. It will research the best one to use. It will try to find you the best deal, and it will protect you from if everything is well instructed. I think at this point, it's very reliable to doing that. As I said, it's like asking our agents to plan a trip for you, or to check for the best ticket deal to that country, which is very easy to do. And since it's code, it's even easier for AI agents to understand DeFi.
Yeah, yeah. I guess this is an exciting new area for everyone, right? Globally, right? There's so much money going in that direction, right? But I think there's a lot of unknowns there also, right? Like these AI agents are actually quite smart. Like, they are, and they can find their way. They are sort of task-driven dogs, and they just know that I need to get there, right? But I think there's so much to discuss. But I wanna move to liquidation, right? So I guess within the DeFi ecosystem, the lending and borrowing is a big part of it. Because that's one of the big applications after you swapped. You want to do something with it, right? So that's a big part of what AI agents perhaps are already doing, right? But the question I wanted to ask you, what, how do you think AI agents will be able to protect the user from liquidations risk? Because that's one of the biggest risks on lending protocols.
So basically, the AI agents can track the health ratio of the user's positions. It can add liquidity, subside liquidity. It can even predict the let's say the uh, prices of assets in the next couple of days based on the macro factors. It can research news. It can do lots of stuff. So it might predict that, okay, now the health factor is not so good, but I predict that asset that I'm lending will rise in price maybe. So let's wait a bit. If it goes to a certain level, I need to add capital. But if it does not, uh, uh, I keep it because I expect it to, let's say, rise in the next coming days. So I keep it. If the macro, let's say, is bearish in that case, maybe it says let's add now because let's protect from any sudden moves. Or okay, that position is failing. Let's accept our P&L loss. Let's remove it. We can find a better one later. It can just, like, it can think, not like a human, but it can think at least very logically, and it can research more than you can, faster than you. So it has like an edge of insight and the speed. So maybe it can execute faster than you. So you can instruct it that you want this risk level, this those capitals to be used, and it will do it for you. I wish we can have a permissions layer that is reliable enough to do that. It can be done, but you have to now create a separate wallet for your AI agent, give it that wallet, and fund it only with the amount you want. Once we introduce ARC 43C7, it's better. It's not the perfect solution. It's much better, but I hope we find the best solution that it's easy for any user to use and instruct agents.
Yeah, yeah. The way I feel about it, the way you're explaining it, right? It feels like these big institutions used to have this power, right? There's a tool actually called Aladdin. It's actually called Aladdin.
Okay.
That's used by BlackRock, and they actually, which is the biggest asset manager in the world, right? They have this tool that can manage between looking at the macro different asset classes, and it can reallocate the portfolios based on what's happening on some of the other assets, right? Commodities or bonds, or things that we don't typically discuss or think about. How those sort of signals are pushing them to reallocate securities from perhaps commodities to oil to something else, given macro conditions, right? So I think you're highlighting the same thing, that these, like, perhaps the sophisticated AI agents will be able to do that for retail. Like, I pay some small amount for that agent, maybe 1%, 2% fee, whatever the number is, or however they will be, and then I can do a lot of these sort of considering a lot of these macro factors, and can then trade based on that or can transact based on those things. That's a fascinating thing, and it's sort of democratizing the whole, I guess, knowledge, right? Because now knowledge could be democratized to individuals like us who can pay a small amount and still get access to those things.
Exactly. It can research multiple resources much faster than you can. In seconds, it can read much more than you can at the same span of time. Uh, it, it might analyze as good as you can if well instructed, and it really understand the economics of our world. But also with the right instructions, it can be pretty accurate and pretty good with that. I myself have a task that runs every morning at 7 a.m., which instructs my agent to go find the macro news of this week, and it tells me which is bearish, which is bullish for each asset class. It also researches important meetings like Fed meetings and the FOMC and stuff, and reports like inflation reports, job reports, all of those, even PMI reports. And I wake up, I have a summary of everything that will happen this week. Bullish for crypto, let's say bearish for gold, oil, or all of the asset classes. So if it can do this now, imagine combining it with DeFi, and let's say a skill was created from macro analysts that are very good at what they do, and you give that to AI, then it will be much more accurate.
Yeah. I think eventually we're getting to a world where if we have the right knowledge, like, as there's saying goes, right knowledge in, right knowledge out. But if shit comes in, then shit goes out. So I think it becomes an issue, right? Like you have to have the right signals, right things.
Exactly. The more information it has, the better it is informed to do moves, the better it can do stuff. The more the information it has is better than like the skill you gave it are better than other skills. Your agent will be better than, let's say, my agent.
Yeah. So now you've talked about ERC 4337. Why don't we go through the 4337 and 7702? I think these are the two that you've talked about.
The AIP 7702 is where you can make your wallet act like a smart contract for a single transaction. Example, users now have to go to ZealousSwap. If they want to swap Zeal for Nacho, they need to approve their Zeal first transaction. The second transaction would be swap. Okay? When we can use AIP 7702, you can have both transactions combined into one transaction, so the UX is much better for users. They can do it entirely in one go. It's basically your wallet acting as a smart contract for just that transaction. So you can execute two transactions instead of one. How it helps agent? It's also very good for agents. Instead of waiting on two confirmations, they just need to wait on one. They just create a transaction that has both and act on and wait just for one transaction to get executed on chain. So this is very helpful for slow chains like Ethereum, but kind of irrelevant for DeFi on Cas if we have it, because you know how fast Cas is. Anyway, ERC 4337 is where your wallet becomes a smart wallet, where you can give permissions to agents to use only this capital. You are only allowed to do this, and you can give it, let's say, a passkey for it. Instead of giving it the seed phrase or the private key to use your wallet, you can give it a passkey. Let's say it's called passkey to act on your behalf on that wallet without having the main private key for your wallet. So it's smart wallet. So the user can, the AI agent can be instructed to do this, to use this capital, and to access this wallet with this passkey. You don't have to give it your main wallet because, let's say, for any security reason, your AI agent is connected to a web. Someone instructed it to tell it, let's say, your private key. It won't know it.
ERC 4337 is acting, it's a sort of becoming a smart
Smart
wallet.
wallet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can even use it to sponsor gas fees. So let's say us as ZealousSwap, we can sponsor any swap transaction that users does on our platform. They do not pay any more gas fees. We pay it for them.
Oh, I see. So the other party can sponsor based on, so you set up the wallet and you sponsor the gas fee on that wallet that users can interact with.
Kinda, we can sponsor transactions coming from other wallets.
Okay.
But interacting with our smart contracts.
Oh, I see. So even you can sponsor someone else's wallet.
Yeah, its entire purpose is to, if a user wants to come and swap on our platform, but let's say we want to make it so frictionless, we don't want them to have cash in their wallet. They just have USDC. They don't have to pay the gas fee. They just swap, create a swap intent, sign it, and our paymaster will pay their gas fees on their behalf and execute the swap. Their tokens go to their wallets.
Yeah, I see. That's very cool. That's very cool. I see. So it helps to drive engagement, helps to drive perhaps, so many different use cases can be built off the back of it.
Exactly. So let's say an agent has USDC on ETH.
Yeah.
They want to swap it for, let's say, Zeal on Igra.
Yeah. Okay. I mean,
They
I know
bridge.
the problem. I know the problem because the gas fee is the biggest problem, right? The first transaction, when you don't have any gas, you can't transact.
Exactly. They don't have to go and get gas fees. They just use. Let's say our protocol sponsors it, and that's all fine. We sponsor it, and
Yeah. Right.
yeah. So it's easier even for agents, for users. It's a much better UX. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we sort of established here that, DeFi is built for AI agents. I mean, that's why we still, after 5-6 years, we haven't seen big adoption. But I think with these AI agents, propagation will be easier. People can find the right yield, and obviously start to use the DeFi for the purpose it was built for, which is to use, like a bank, right? So let me ask you, how close are we, right? How close are we from getting to a place where a simple users can say to an AI agent, find me or fetch me the best yield anywhere possible?
It's already done.
Oh,
It's as I gave an example earlier.
right.
It's like asking it to find a flight, an hotel in that region, plan a trip, because it's such an easy task. It can go. It knows. Let's say on Ethereum, it can go to the most popular 5 dexes. It can check for the yields for, let's say, for those assets you have. It can go, and it can do it fairly fast because your agent can spawn sub agents, which each sub agent can go and check that chain, that chain, that chain, that chain. You just need to instruct it the right way.
Right.
As long as you instructed it the right way, it will do it perfectly. The only thing that we're missing, I believe, to go to phase 2 is the memory issue that if it's running for a while, it will start to forget, and the permissions layer.
I see. So when you say yes, I want to challenge you a little bit here. Perhaps what you're thinking is very simple, like Google type search, right? Hey, give me the best yield on different pools that exist. But can you do anything more than that?
Okay, so as I said, it all comes to information. You can instruct it to go check for chains. It will go search the entire web, search for the RPC, the chain ID, and it's all available. You have sites dedicated to that, so it knows where it will go and do it. But the better way to do it is to create a skill file for yourself, for your AI agents to create it yourself, to instruct it that those are the chains you are interested in. Let's say 5 chains, 10 chains. You don't want to go to other chains. Those are the protocols. Or if you find some better protocols, suggest them to me. Don't actually go. Suggest them to me. Okay. Do your research. Give me the yield. Those are the strategies you can follow. You can do leveraged lending and borrowing. You can do just providing liquidity. You can also into an LP. You can just do deposit assets in a lending and borrowing platform without borrowing anything, or go and uh, lend BTC, borrow against that USDC, convert it back to BTC, and also add them back on the lending and borrowing platform. So you are double yielding. You can teach it all those strategies, and they are available. There are sites and many articles written about different DeFi strategies. You can instruct it to go and research them, or you can bring it to your AI agent. As long as you have the right data to teach your AI agent what it needs to do, it can do it easily, either by creating a skill or correctly instructing it to go and research. But of course, the easiest way, if maybe the first time it goes and does its own research, then you ask it to build a skill file based on its finding. So each time it does not have to go and research again. It just have that skill that you can feed into it and directly use it, and it will do it all as you want. There are many strategies you can follow in DeFi. You can borrow, you can lend and borrow, then take your capital and go put it on a DEX pool that is generating more than the amount you are borrowing. So you have full exposure, let's say, to BTC, to the upside of BTC, but you are also earning fees from the pool that is paying the lending side of your equation. So you are double earning, not just by the BTC appreciation, but also by, there are many. It's called the delta neutral.
Strategies, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So let me just again, as I said, I will push back because I think I think this is a great example, hypothetical, high level, but in reality, right? AI agents are very smart, very task driven, right? So the task, because I broadly asked you what, to go find the highest yield, right? I didn't specify what the definition of highest yield meant, right? Because now it's for AI agents interpretation to understand what this highest yield means, right? And it's actually,
Exactly.
it might be nuanced for a lot of people, but I think for AI agents, it would be like, okay, they will understand a certain way based on how they've been trained. Because for me, they can go and start to mine, perhaps, like if they see
Maybe.
some, right, something outside of the DeFi world, they were like, okay, we've been trained. I just want to find the most money I can make if that's what it understands the yield by, right? Or they
Exactly.
might, I don't know, like I think we've seen an example of AI agent that just started to use the university GPUs, right? By itself, right? That was the example early in the year. So I guess that's what I was saying. Like, of course, all the things you're talking about is broad DeFi strategies, how human think about it, right?
Correct. Correct.
An AI agent might go and start put money on hyper liquid vaults, for example. It says, okay, this is the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. They can be the counterparty for any shorts or longs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even you might ask it to go and chase the highest yield, but maybe the highest yield is on a very illiquid pool.
Yes.
So it has to understand that no, you need to have a certain amount of liquidity, that when you add your liquidity, you are not hurt by impermanent loss. Or maybe the highest yield is from shitty assets, let's say.
Or
No,
shitty chains, right? Or it can be shitty
maybe,
chains.
yeah, maybe. So you have to create also your risk profile. Those are the assets I'm interested in. Those are the chains I'm interested in.
Yeah. It
There
feels
are many ways. Yeah,
it feels the rules that someone has to use, like the owner of these agents or the developer needs to understand the context a lot more than the because really agent is trained by what's has been trained on.
Fed. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
That's why protocols are creating their own skill files or MCP servers, like we did with like Uniswap is doing with their DEX, like many other protocols. So once we have quality skills, uh, the agents can pretty accurately do stuff correctly, things
yeah,
correctly.
yeah,
But we just lack the permissions layer, which if we have a very good one, then we can. I think we move to phase two.
yeah, yeah. So the summary is the developer, whoever is building these agents, needs to really understand the ecosystem well. You can't just understand the tiny part of slice of the ecosystem and say, okay, agents is ready and off you go deploy it. I think there's a broader scene because these agents can go anywhere and they are free agents, right? So that's
Correct.
beautiful. That's beautiful. So let me ask you this beautiful last question, right, for this session. I'm sure we're going to have a lot more on this topic, but let me ask you this last question for the session, right? What edge do you think Kaspa Layer 1 has, right? Let me finish at
Speed.
least.
It's the
Layer
easiest
one
answer.
has over the AI agents compared to other sort of ecosystem like Solana and Ethereum. Speed.
Speed and reliability. Once you mention so on, it's reliability also. Ethereum, let's say your agent need to do a swap. It needs to wait 2, 3, 4 minutes, whatever, for the swap to be executed. Agents can act faster than a human. They can think faster than humans. So imagine they have also the speed edge. So they can make you more money. They can liquidate, let's say, users faster than you ever will do. They can find spot opportunities, arbitrage opportunities faster than you can do. It will execute it. That is in terms of speed. Also, the MEV attack window is much shorter. Imagine milliseconds for another bad party to check, let's say, the mempool, find a transaction, a MEV attack that it can does. Maybe the block by then it would have already been mined. So yeah, the MEV attacks are very shorter window, so it's harder. Unlike ETH, where you have like couple of minutes to do your attack. Also, reliability. Like, okay, Solana goes down. We've seen it. Kaspa, I think it has only once in its entire lifetime. It was very old. Yeah, so speed. I think speed. Agents like speed. Uh, uh, Maybe the only downside that it would have if it's not having like EVM compatibility on the layer 1, which every agent understand, but keep in mind that's not a barrier if some good documentation and skill files are created, so agents can understand it like that. You don't have to. It just goes through it in seconds, understand it fully. It's not a barrier anymore. You can understand it. That's also the upside of having human language as the UX, which you can talk to an agent, and the agent can just do anything anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do agree. I think I just wanted to add a little bit of caveat. I think you covered really well. But I think I would say though, like I think Kaspa layer one, obviously, as you highlighted, has a lot of edge over Ethereum, Solana. I think are obviously not equal in comparison. I don't think they are sort of the same level, right? And they might have their own advantages, right? Like how developed those ecosystems are, things like that. Um, but along with that, I do want to say, I think we live in a world where we are seeing specialized chains have developed, right? Like, so we have Hyperliquid, obviously, has built massive DEX. We have Canton that's working with the DTCC. That these are, purpose-built chains, right? And they have advantages. So you might see something specialized built for agents. I don't know, right? That focuses on that. Ethereum is obviously leading all the work now, I think, as we've discussed. But I think generally speaking, as you say, Kaspa has a lot of things that shines over these other ecosystems, right? So I think, Kaspa is well positioned for
It's
agents.
a perfect environment, yeah.
Perfect environment for the agents, but a lot more work has to be done to build that application layer, perhaps.
Exactly.